Hello, everybody. It's Daryn Wood, and welcome back to another episode of The Gift of Gab. I'm joined here by my lovely best friend, Allie Haugen.
We're here gabbing.
We're here gabbing, and we're here gifting the gab to you. Okay, today we are going to talk about some of the key differences between the 2014 Player's Handbook and the new 2024 Player's Handbook. And we're not going to go into like every single rule and every single change, but we're going to just talk about some of the ones that like we really like and that stood out to us. So one of the ones that we like the best is the introducing of feats.
Yeah, origin feats specifically.
Feats,
Yeah, so they took some of the feats that already existed and added some more also, but nerfed them just a little bit and enabled them to be starting feats or origin feats, as they call it. So I think that's really cool that each character already starts with a feat, and that's a really exciting thing. If you play a human, you start with 2 feats, but that's really no different than playing as a variant in human and getting 1 more feat than everybody else or other species at the table.
Yeah.
It adds just like a little treat that you're like, oh, I have this cool additional feature along with my character. And that's, enabling different characters depending what background you took. You can either have alert right out the gate, skilled, which used to be exclusively for rogues, is getting to start with that proficiency right away. But now if you have the skilled feat, then you have a little bit more proficiency and expertise.
Previously in other episodes, we talked about like when you were building a character, sometimes you don't know where to start. And a lot of the like new 2024 rules have just made it a lot easier to build characters, to build encounters, to build all that stuff. It just makes it a lot more seamless and takes away like requiring deep level knowledge to get started with something. And I think you're right, something like origin feats just kind of like takes away the confusion of it, where it's like, oh, if you want expertise like a rogue and these specific skills, then you would have to play a rogue. You know that the rogue does that, but it's like, or now you just have like this very like widely accessible skilled origin feat. So it's like, okay, maybe you don't want to like play a sneaky rogue, but you're like thinking about it and you're like, well, we're doing a dungeon crawl and like someone needs to be able to unlock doors and be able to like pick locks and stuff. Oh, maybe I'll just take proficiency in this. And it makes it a lot easier to just like kind of like cherry pick things you want to do based on like your background and the character you have in mind, instead of like marrying it to a very specific mechanic for like a very specific class.
Yeah, I would say another one of the origin feats is the healer feat that comes with some of the backgrounds. Is it kind of enables you at a lower level to have more access to people being able to offer heals.
Oh, okay. I see what you mean. So it's like instead of someone like specifically playing a healer based on like, oh, we're a party full of whatever, someone needs to play the healer. Now you're building your origin or you're building your character. Everyone kind of has to pick an origin feat. It's like, oh, well then I'll just pick this like healer feat. It allows me to do like super basic healing. So if we're ever like in a pinch, instead of like committing myself to playing this healing character, at least I'll have this like in the back burner.
Exactly. It definitely gives people more access to healing party members. So instead of somebody feeling the necessity of taking healing word as a bard, maybe somebody else has access to this, or taking a paladin dip for that lay on hands pool. Yeah. It's just another option that people have.
A lot of more access to like play around and like find the things in your like play style and that what you find valuable and like bring that into your like your character build. I really like the origin feats. I think that's super cool because because like everybody wants to take a feat, but it's all, oh my god, what are you talking about? The best change is the ability score increase with feats. Huge.
Yes, that's
huge.
That's my favorite thing because I feel like anytime that you're at a level option where you're taking either a feat or an ability score improvement, it's such a hard choice. And like feats are so cool, but obviously it's so powerful to take an ability score increase. So now you don't feel like you're missing out on that ability score increase.
Yeah.
You get to take a feat and you get 1 point in ability score increase, and you can which is huge.
Yeah, you can be a little more strategic about it now. And like, because even like the character that I play with, like in our long home game, I just, it was my first time playing D&D. Okay. I didn't know how to like really smartly build a character. And like our friend like really helped us kind of like walk through it and stuff. But at the end of the day, you're doing that thing where you're like choosing between feat and I like the feats that I have, but like at the level I'm at as a character, my stats are just like not it for what a paladin
not ideal
like should be. So I had to spend a lot of time making up for it later on. And I'm like, it just like it really was kind of a sacrifice because I was like kind of a nerfed character for a while based on like the feats I genuinely enjoyed. I genuinely enjoyed the feats that I took, but the cost was I did like nothing in a lot of like my paladin game. It was like so sad, but it's like that huge. The ability score increase with feats is fucking huge. I love it. I think that's my favorite.
Yeah, I agree. That's definitely my favorite change in the new rules and additions.
Yeah. Ooh, another really cool one is the epic boons that are introduced.
Yeah.
That's like a class feature now, right?
Yes. At level 19, everybody gets an epic boon.
Yeah.
So it's basically the opposite of the baby nerfed origin feats.
Yeah.
They kind of oomphed it up and give everybody a boon, a reward for making it.
Nerf something in the beginning and then like a big reward at the end. So it's like if you continue and you stay with one character, when you get to it, you get to have this epic boon. And the epic boons are really cool, actually. You can get proficiency in all skills, short range teleportation, a possible spell slot recall. So that's...
Oh, yeah. Spell recall, where you roll a d4 and if it's the same number as the spell level that you cast, you don't burn a spell slot.
Super sick.
That's huge.
Yeah.
A 25% chance
Literally.
of not burning a spell.
And then, like,
hell yeah,
when you're in dim light, you can be, like, invisible and resistant to most damage. You can give yourself true sight. You can get a lot of cool stuff. You know, it kind of reminds me of, like, warlocks, like the pact boons. Like, that's, like, honestly one of the funnest things about playing a warlock is actually, like, getting to choose between, or not the pact boon. What am I thinking of? Is that what I'm thinking of?
No, it's not the pact boon.
Okay, not eldritch invocations. So it reminds me of that because it's like when you are playing a warlock and you get to like, you're going up in a level, you're like, ooh, what will I do now? Will I do Mask of Many Faces? Will I do blah, blah, blah? And it's like such a fun aspect of playing a warlock. You know, the cost is you're just going to be doing Eldritch Blast until you die, but...
Yeah, but then, you know, getting that agonizing blast feature.
So, like, it's, like, one of the fun parts about Warlock, and I'm glad that they kind of brought that in as, like, something that everybody gets to choose from.
Yeah.
If you get to level 19.
Yeah, if you survive.
If you survive.
It's a nice little treat.
To the level
Congrats,
19.
you made it. Yeah, another cool thing with martial classes, all martial classes start out with a weapon mastery feature.
Oh yeah, so like if you're a martial class that is barbarian, fighter, paladin, ranger, rogue, those all now come with the weapon mastery built into as a class feature, and then your weapons could either slow, nick, push, vex, topple, sap, graze. Some people might be familiar with this from like Baldur's Gate. It's like kind of these magical properties in the weapon itself.
Exactly. So even if you're not a martial class, you can also take it as a feat. So it is a feat option that if you don't have that immediate benefit and that's something that you think you would greatly benefit from, then just take it as a feat later.
Yeah, it's cool. So now like everyone basically has access to like a basic magic weapon that has like a little extra something it can do. So it's like, okay, I'm sick of doing just like the classic stab, hit, whatever slice. It's like, well, maybe I'm going to do this one this time. So
which is huge. If you're toppling people and knocking them prone.
Yeah, hell yeah.
That's a great advantage.
Oh, and then actually the one Vex, that's advantage.
Yeah. So if you hit a creature and impose Vex on them, it gives you advantage on your next attack, which is huge if you're playing a rogue.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of my friends in our current campaign is playing a rogue, and that's such an essential feature for him to utilize.
Yeah, I like that it's kind of given to martial classes to use as well, because I think that's like one of the, it's one of the things I love most about playing support characters is using like battle strategy as a part of like your class actions. You know what I mean? Like, oh, vicious mockery, right? I'm going to give disadvantage to this person just to give maybe that little extra edge in this part of that. So it's like allowing martial characters to do that too, because they should be able to do that just like in a different way. Like doesn't exactly have to be a spell, but it's like, oh, I want to kind of strategically set up the battle without specifically being a battle master like fighter. It's like, oh, I want the option to just maybe do something a little creative and collaborative as well.
It makes everything, in my opinion, feel a little bit more magical. Is that you have an additional property to add to all of your turns. Is that rather than just like, I smash, I hit him, I deal damage. It adds another mechanic to it that you can get creative with.
Yeah, I think it promotes creativity a lot too, which I like. It does make magical and honestly kind of a little more real, because I think that is something in like, especially when you're doing kind of like martial combat and stuff. I've always noticed this with like newer players, that it's like, oh, I hit him in the knee or in the neck or in the leg, and you kind of have to explain like, oh, well, that doesn't like really matter, you know what I mean? You can't just be like, I slit their throat for my action, they're dead now, right? It's like, well, like, you have to get into the mechanics of what that is. And I think this allows you to be a little bit more realistic. Like, okay, I knocked them on their ass. I use topple. Like, do I hit? Feels a little more realistic, and it feels like you get a little more reward for doing something creative.
So something that they clarified in rules in the new 2024 that I've noticed at tables that I play at, that had already kind of been a super common house rule, is potions as a bonus action versus action. I had noticed that a lot of DMs were saying that if you took a potion as a action, you receive all of the benefits of that potion to its full capabilities, versus you roll for it if you're doing it as a bonus action.
Yeah. I feel like that's one of those, like, a lot of the rules I've actually noticed in the 2024 handbook are just like clarifying and making things clear and like solidifying it as rules as written. I think especially for like people like us who like play a lot of D&D with honestly a lot of different people, and also like ingest a lot of D&D content. I think we're exposed to a lot of homebrew rules, and then people borrow from other people, and so that you end up kind of seeing the same rules over and over again, and then it kind of becomes like the thing where it's like, well, it's not that big of a deal. Like, why don't you just do this and that? I mean, like, we talk about NADPOD all the time. I think they do bonus action healing potions in their current campaign because there's not a lot of like healers in there. And so it's like, it's something you see common a lot. And then I think this 2024 rule book, it's like for people, it's not, I like that it's for things that's like, okay, you guys may all know this and be play like this all the time, but this is just makes it super easy. I actually, when we were looking up, just like reading the handbook, we saw that there was like the new actions, like, study and influence, and we're like, ooh, like new actions, I wonder what they could be. Ooh, it sounds so interesting. It's literally just like
just a charisma check. Like, you make an intelligence check.
And then we're like, wait, and then we're like, oh yeah, like no duh, like try to like remember what it's like to like never play D&D in your life, and then you're like, okay, you're in battle now, and you're like, so I have to hit them, right?
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh wait, no, I can do all kinds of things. I can make an intelligent, I can try to talk to them. And I think it just makes it really clear all these things.
Yeah, that you have so many options for your action economy. It's not just attack.
Yeah.
So I do like that. I also like other areas of their clarification is they even added words to specify that, like, the web spell is flammable, whereas the grease spell that I think a lot of us that were playing Baldur's Gate use that in ways to light people on fire. And specifically in this handbook, they clarified that the grease is a non-flammable liquid.
Dang.
So
what kind of grease do you think it is then?
I can't even think of a non-flammable.
It's just slime? It's just gelatinous.
Maybe. You take the slimes from Stardew Valley and make them into a slime and throw them out as grease.
Blood? Okay. Where am I going? Well, what kind of grease is not flammable? Like, how gross would that be? I'm just imagining like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory chocolate.
Just like, it's just like super sticky.
Yeah, just like kid slime.
Yeah, or I guess it's slippery. No, it's not even sticky.
To blood.
I guess so. Yeah.
It's just a big
blood in a bottle.
It's just a big ass. That's kind of nasty. Okay. They also made I think they made things more efficient. I think a lot of people have been talking about like the exhaustion rules. So I think it's like also one of those things where they took something that's like kind of nebulous and like, because it's like, I don't know, if you play D&D a lot, like exhaustion isn't necessarily coming up all the time unless you're playing something that like very specific, like you're trekking through somewhere, or you're like really against the grind. You're not getting rest because you're like with the BBG, like, you're really in it. But it's like it had so many, every level of exhaustion came with its own specific rule that you had to then manage and keep tabs of, and then like the new exhaustion like kind of just streamlined it all.
Yeah, and it's a little, in my opinion, it's a little less scary as well. So maybe it'll come into effect more often. People will kind of dabble into pushing their limits.
Yeah.
Because I think it's -2 penalty to any D20 roll.
Yeah.
And so it's no longer specified just ability checks for level 1.
Or like
It's
saving throws.
any D20 roll. And a -5 penalty to your movement speed. And that's going to increase as your exhaustion level increases.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like it's going to make it a lot easier to implement into a play session because the mechanics, one, are a lot simpler to remember both on both sides for the DM and for the player. But I also think it makes it a little more fun to like impose penalties, you know what I mean? Like it does get bad because these things all double, you know, so it's like times your exhaustion level, 2 times your exhaustion level. First it's -2, then it's -4, you know, and like first it's -5 movement, then it's -10, so it grows exponentially. So there is like a consequence, and that can get very, very bad. -15 movement, minus, you know, 8, 10, whatever to your exhaustion.
And you still die at level 6 exhaustion. Like you still die.
You still die. You can't stay up for 6 days and, you know, still be alive. But I do think that is a little, it's like fun spicy, because then it's like, okay, yeah, you guys, I would feel more comfortable as a DM being like, yeah, do that, but you're going to take exhaustion.
And I'd feel more comfortable as a player facing that exhaustion.
Yeah.
Before, like, I feel like players are hyper aware of the fact that if you don't sleep, you get a level of exhaustion.
Yeah, and it's like so scared.
It's such a choice to be like, okay, do we waste a whole day?
Yeah.
And just sleep in fear of exhaustion versus, yeah, -2.
You're like, -2 is not great, but
is
like
a big deal, but
let's gamble. Like, let's
maybe
take
we
it.
could do it.
Let's
Yeah.
do the risk. I think
just
you're
roll
right.
well.
It'll, I think, incite people to take more risks, or maybe not. I don't know. For me, it would. I'm speaking for personally. I think it would make me take more risks.
I agree. I think I would push the limits.
So yeah, that's just a few of the notable differences between the 2014 and the 2024 handbook that we wanted to go over. I think let's talk about spells, because there's a lot of spell differences, but there's a few fun ones that we want to talk about. But let's do that in another episode. So thank you guys so much for watching The Gift of Gab. We'll see you to talk about some spells in the next episode.
Bye, guys.